Hello and welcome to episode 141 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client MTG Arena.
And we have a set to talk about this week. No, it's not the one coming up, but it's the one we've just been playing. It's the Lost Caverns of Ixalan Happy Hour, which we will get to in just a moment. But first, each week we bring a beer, we drink it, and we rate it on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So, with that, Jeff, what's on tap?
All right, this week we have Each Beast a God. This is a double stout with Ethiopian washed gory geisha coffee. It's 8.5%.
Mhm.
And it's from Third Moon, so we've had them before. They tend to do weird things. This is one of the least weird beers we've had by them. It's
Mhm.
just a coffee stout. Um, so I'm excited to, because I can't remember if we actually tried anything from them that was just normal, or if everything was like they threw pumpkin pie into right into the whatever.
I think it's all weird. Yeah, we had the
Yeah.
pumpkin pie one. They also did one that was a like peanut butter and jelly banana thing.
Oh, right, that
Um,
one.
yeah. So and that was like a pastry set or something. So they've all been super weird. And this brewery is known for doing weird things where they literally
Yeah,
throw in the actual dessert. If it's a tiramisu beer, they put a tiramisu in,
right.
and you know that because they show you on their Instagram stories. So but they seem like really cool dudes, and they
Oh, it
love
just
like
seems like they're just
this.
having a blast over there. Like, what
Yeah,
if
and
we
they
made an awesome tiramisu and then just chucked
chuck
it
it in.
into the winter?
Yeah, I don't even think that they make the tiramisu, to be fair. But and they wouldn't say that either, I know. But they do love death metal music and that imagery, so you can obviously see the
Yeah, that's
beast
very
that's a god.
clear,
And
very clear in their
if you
designs.
go there, I think they're in Milton, Ontario, and they're just blasting like death metal music. So um, very metal, very call time.
They're just
Uh,
doing their thing. They're doing their thing. This is what they
yeah,
like.
this is
This is
great.
what they did.
All right, here we go, Jeff. Let's crack these
Three,
open.
2, 1.
Huh. Oh, baby. We haven't had a stout in a while. And it's pretty cold outside, so it's nice to get one of these going. Just black double coffee stout. But anyway, with that, we have some magic news. Nothing really's happening. We're just waiting for murders at Karlov Manor to start. The actual set comes onto Arena like February 6th. However, spoilers start this upcoming Tuesday, January 16th. So
Yep.
we're gonna do our happy hour for Lost Caverns of Ixalan, kind of give it a wave goodbye before we start seeing cards for the new set. But yeah, with that, Jeff, what is a happy hour? What are we doing here? What are these about?
All right. So happy hour shows when we take some time to look back on the most recent set, right before the next set comes out, as you alluded to. So what did we like? What didn't we like? Was it a good
Mhm.
set, bad set, medium set? How did it impact limited standard? And basically just whatever we want. But most importantly, we hold ourselves accountable. At the start of each set, we make some predictions about some cards that will see some play and some cards that won't see some play. We call them our worth a slots. And here we get to look back and see how badly did we fuck it up.
Yeah, exactly. No spoilers for that yet, but we will get to that in a little bit. But yeah, we just we want to say thank you so much, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and just a last little, you know, reminder of how awesome it was in any way that every set has some sort of little nugget that's great about it, and we want to be able to
Yeah,
find
yeah.
those things because sometimes people like to smear oh, that was terrible, everything about that was terrible, when there's actually some great things, even if it's just like the art direction, honestly.
Yeah. The good stuff can get lost in the in the toxic wasteland
Yeah,
that sometimes some of these communities can
yeah,
turn
it's
into.
like
So
magic Twitter and Reddit can be pretty lethal. So
yeah.
anyway, let's get into it. Jeff, what'd you think about this set? What were your kind of, did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed them? What were you doing? What was the most fun? I
Yeah.
all over the place.
This set was awesome.
Hmm.
I think the limited format was fairly fun. I didn't play a ton of it. I don't really know what the sort of the community consensus on it was, but I enjoyed the time that I did
Good.
spend on it.
Hmm.
But man, this set had a lot of awesome cards for constructed. So it's so weird. It like impacted pretty much every single format, I think, in some
Yeah.
way. Um, and then some formats like standard, it's just chock full of new cards, but nothing like spawned a brand new archetype, I don't think. It just
Hmm.
allowed like variations on what people were playing before to come out. Esper kind of split into Esper, blue black, and blue white are all totally
Hmm.
viable mid-range decks now because of some of these Lost Caverns cards. It's just like it didn't impact it in the way that a lot of powerful constructed sets do, where they just take over and now all the new decks are whatever, they're like Kaldheim style, where it's like you're playing Goldspan or you're playing
Alrund's Epiphany.
Elrond's Epiphany, and that's like those are the decks.
Hmm.
This was so different because it's just like it just added powerful cards. Like pretty much every deck has
Everywhere.
a
Yeah.
card from this format in it or from this set in it. So it just like boosted a lot of sort of periphery options in the meta game so that
Hmm.
it's just a lot more diverse now.
Yeah. I think that's great. We actually, we're kind of talking about it right now. So we might as well go through kind of a list of the cards that like broke in that were
Yeah.
from this set. This is just like a rudimentary list that I kind of put together. So if Jeff, you have any cards, please throw them out. But like Spyglass Siren, that's been all over
Yep.
standard. Bitter Triumph is a card people were yelling about that they couldn't find copies of for different standard and pioneer events. Um,
Yeah, I'm going through that now. I literally cannot
mhm,
find
like a paper
anyone that
copy.
has that card. Yeah.
Deep Cavern Bat, Geological Appraiser
Deep
got,
Cavern Bat is everywhere now.
yeah, all over the place. Geological, I said Explorer, but it's Geological Appraiser.
Fraser, yeah.
Um, that card got banned in Pioneer.
Right. Forgot about that.
Yeah, so that was a whole thing. It spawned a whole. That was the deck that got spawned. Was that Discover
Yeah.
deck,
Yeah.
and it got a
Rakdos.
card banned.
And in standard too, Rakdos Discover is a deck that
Right.
I guess did not exist before
Yeah.
LCI, obviously, because Discover is the
Yeah.
new mechanic.
Get Lost is a new white removal spell people are using.
Yeah,
Um,
it shouldn't be. It's bad, but
it
okay.
is pretty bad, but people do play it a lot, and I
Yeah.
tend to kind of like it because map tokens are actually pretty good.
Oh yeah, I love when they get lost my creature. It's like
Yeah,
a
it's like
three
oh,
for one you? Sure.
oh, okay. um, you get Warden of the Inner Sky,
Big one.
which
Big one.
yep, that was a good one. Malcolm, Alluring Scoundrel, which is nice. More flash, blue flash threats, which helps spawn like they play it in like the blue white deck, and they play it in Debir and different things like that. It's kind of like
Yep.
extra masterminds.
Yeah, I really like the Demir. Speaking of this card and the next one, the
Hmm.
Demir what do you call it? Like mid-range deck, I guess. It's kind of a
Yeah.
tempo-y game plan
Hmm.
in standard. I really like that deck. And that wasn't really a thing before Lost Caverns.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Subterranean Schooner. This is probably one of the biggest ones. You see this
Yeah.
card everywhere, and I don't know what specific. So it's like the vehicle, the blue vehicle that like explores the 3/4, but I want to give it like a pet name. We
Yeah.
had like the
Yeah.
Cadillac, with the
Cadillac,
Seagast, and
Looter Scooter for
Looter Scooter. You have like was it Skyship, Council Skyship or whatever is boat,
is the boat.
playing
Yeah.
boats.
It's the classic. Love that one.
So people call this boat, and I don't want to call it boat because we already have a card that's called
Boat's
boat.
already taken. Yeah, yeah.
So is ship
And there's a
like
lot of boats in this set.
there are a lot of boats, but like no one's playing the galleon, and no one's that doesn't really matter. Um, but like, is ship weird, or is it like do we call it the tugboat? Is it smaller? I kind of like that. That's funny.
It's not bad.
I'm still working on names for the schooner, um, but yeah,
Is it schooner? I always called it a schooner. Like,
maybe it is
I
a
don't know.
schooner, but we should actually. I don't actually have no idea whether it's actually pronounced Schooner or Schooner. But the reason I call it Schooner is because you should deal with it Schooner rather than later. That tends to be the reason why I say
I
that.
love that.
So I don't actually know how you're supposed to pronounce it, but Schooner does sound like a boat thing. Um,
So when I was in undergrad, all the bars that were around like the university I went to
yeah.
had schooners, which are 1 liter of beer. And so you would buy
Oh,
like a schooner. It's a big ass mug, like basically little more than 2 pints for those of
yeah.
us. For those of you that don't know what a liter is, it's like just over
It's a
2 pints. And
Nalgene.
I don't know if that was um a normal thing or that's just what we called them, but that's what I always call them now. I don't think anyone called it that in Toronto. So I'd order a schooner and they'd be like, "What are you talking about? It's like a
Oh,
sailboat?
it's
What's the
just like
matter with
a
you?"
Queens thing. Okay, so it's definitely
I'm not
Schooner.
sure, but
It's 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 it's
we called them schooners at
it's yeah, it's pronounced Schooner. I looked it up. Um,
yeah, but Queens is a big sail like Kingston, where Queens is a big sailing community. So I don't know if
yeah,
it's related why they were called schooners there.
because it's like a port or whatever up there, right? So
Yeah. Like
and
yeah, like all the big sailing races, I think usually that's the biggest one of the year, I think. It's the one in Kingston.
in Lake Ontario, Kingston is like right by the Rideau Canal, which is how
Yeah.
you got ships in and out from the Atlantic.
So
Um,
Rideau. But yeah.
Rideau. Well, I can't. Obviously, I don't know how to pronounce words that deal with boats, Jeff. Usually, well, it doesn't matter. Whatever. Let's keep going with, with cards from this set, and don't let's not sit on the thing that Zach doesn't know how to read, um,
Yeah.
because we hit that hard most of the time. Anyway,
Creature of the Schism.
is this schism?
Yeah.
Yeah, preacher of the schism, right? Okay,
Yeah.
don't do that because I will say schism forever because I don't trust myself. Um, anyway, preacher of the schism. This card, okay,
Lots
because
of
it
people really like this card. I think I'm starting to come around on it, but I'm not super high on this card. Anytime my opponent plays it, I'm always like, all right. And I never really put it in my black based mid range decks. People are playing this in like Rakdos in Explorer or Pioneer. I think that's
yeah
crazy.
yeah it's
But the people, by when I say people, I mean like, Gabriel Nassif and stuff. So I
for
feel like
sure.
I can't just call them idiots because they're much better than me. But
Yeah, I just think that like it's not my I.
doesn't seem that good. I don't know.
It doesn't seem that good, but it ends up being really annoying. I think that's what happens with
It's
me.
one of those things that's like okay in every situation.
Hmm.
It's never super amazing. Like I think you have the dream that it's just going to run away with the game and draw you cards of return and stuff. And I've never seen that happen. Um,
It ends up being this
the
thing where
four
I'm
toughness,
just
I guess, is kind of annoying.
it's the four toughness, death touch four toughness ends up being really irritating, and it just kind of like not that
Yeah,
it's like the worst that it's like sitting there, but like it ends up being much more annoying. And if they get to draw a card off of it or anything, I'm just like, oh god,
my deck's just like all edicts, I guess. So I'm like, okay, whatever.
okay.
Sack that, please.
But it makes a token though, so
Well, I'm not going to let them do that. The edict is coming right away when you tap out for this 3 drop.
yeah.
It doesn't
See,
do
and
anything.
my deck is just like all three ones, and it's like, well, let's just 2/4. But I can't trade with this.
It's pretty good to hit off Appraiser in that Rakdos deck, I guess.
Yes.
But I also don't think the Appraiser's particularly good when you're playing it fair. Like it
Hmm.
was obviously stupid in that combo deck that
When you're
you just
yeah, it's
play an Appraiser and you win. But
yes, that's obviously a lot better than what this deck is doing. But the appraiser deck is a lot of just like one of the other cards that we're about to say, trumpeting Carnosaur into appraiser into whatever,
yeah,
um,
I
is
just never seem to lose to that deck. I don't know. Those cards just like I guess the Appraiser. It's a 3/2 plus a random card. It's
mhm.
like the 3/2 is just so
Random
crappy by today's standards, like just a 3/2 for
for
4.
four. Yeah, that's
But
true.
I never really care that. It's like, and you have so much removal in your deck that sometimes I just don't have a creature and you can't cast your Geological Appraiser because you're going to hit a removal spell and
Sure.
it's just going to be a 3/2 for 4. I don't know. I haven't been impressed by that deck,
They
but
still
I've
get to
seen.
draw the removal spell because they did fix they fixed Cascade with this
Oh,
set.
yeah, yeah, that's fair. I forgot about that. But still, like, yeah, it just
I don't
doesn't seem. I've never been impressed with this deck, but I've seen a lot of online stuff about how it's tier 1. Oh,
Oh, what? No, 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 no. I don't think it's
yeah.
tier one. No, 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 no,
People claim that this deck is tier one. Up there, like
no.
the tier one that I've seen is Domain, Esper midrange, and this. And I'm like, what?
No,
I had that deck at like tier three. I
no.
think that deck's
The
bad.
other two, yes, that makes a lot of sense. This,
Yeah, the other Domain for sure is the best deck in the format.
yes,
Um,
yeah, and
and some version of black, blue, and white midrange is up there as
is
well.
yeah, whichever.
If it's Esper, maybe it's Esper. I personally like blue black, but I just kind of like it. I don't know if I would argue it's the strongest. I just like it
I
the best.
I think I just hate playing against Rafine, so I usually think it's that one because I'm like, oh, Rafine
Yeah,
again.
that's fair. Like
But
maybe you just don't get enough. Like the mana isn't bad enough that you get it's
punished.
worth it to cut the color.
Well,
Like you're
obviously the domain deck's the best, so the mana's great in the
that's right,
format. So
yeah. Just colors doesn't fucking matter. You
doesn't
just play
fucking
whatever you
matter.
want.
What is this 3 year standard? Oh, right. Yeah, you can just do whatever. Um, the next card, Inti Senescal of the Sun.
My favorite card in the whole set.
Yeah.
I really wish I had put this as my like somewhere in my worthless slot.
Mhm.
I don't know how I missed it, to be honest. I This is my type of card right here.
Yeah, you might notice that we haven't mentioned any of our worthless slots yet because we, we might be a little bit behind.
Maybe you didn't nail it.
Maybe didn't nail it on this one. This
There's
set
so
was
many good cards in this set, and we pick
there
okay, this
were,
whatever.
but also this set was like a big, a bit of a sleeper. I think some of the cards feel like they fit in just little crevices. It feels like there was kind of like a sidewalk that had some holes, and they just kind of like fell into them and like
For
made things
sure.
stronger.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to sometimes find specifically the like great card for whatever. Also, sometimes they're all over the place. Like we could have easily said that Geological Praiser would be worth putting your deck in
Yeah, yeah.
Explorer, but we don't really talk about that. So, um,
For sure.
but
Inti, love this card. The more that you play with this card, I think the more you realize how freaking good it is.
mhm. I think
I
that's what it
think
is.
the thing that doesn't like fly off the card immediately is
Mm-hmm.
it's until your next end step. So any discard effects your opponents make you do
Mm-hmm.
basically are nullified by you getting to draw a card. Or you can just discard cards, blood token the most common way on your opponent's turn, and it turns a blood token into like a discard one, draw two,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty nuts. And then there's just random like channel lands. You actually discard them in order to get the effect, and so
Yeah, I
this
forget about that.
triggers this. And of course, it's legendary, so it makes your channel lands cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are just so many things that add up with this card, and like the giving trample really matters, and the
Mm-hmm.
distributing +1/+1 counters matters, and
Yeah,
it's just like the more I play with this, the more I'm like, it's ridiculous that this card's a 2-drop, to be honest. Like, it's
and
not necessarily a 2-drop you want on turn two, because you kind of want to play it and generate advantage immediately.
mm-hmm.
Um,
If you have a one drop,
yeah, but even
then
then, like you can't cast the card that you draw off.
that's true. Yeah,
or
that's
or
true.
play the land if you right. So
Mm-hmm.
I tend to like I would play any other two
Wait,
drop before this, and then what I love is turn three Liliana, turn four this plus
plus
Lily,
what
and
and
attack with something, and like you
play
just pop
something.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, that does sound good. If you haven't been in our Discord before, come check us out. The link's down below. But Jeff has a great deck with this card. I've tried to play it on stream. I would say this card does need a lot of reps to get under your belt, and
Yeah,
I did not
it's
do.
surprisingly tricky.
Yes, but it's very powerful, and you can feel it when you're playing the deck. But I think you do need to know what you're doing, and I did not when I was playing it on stream. So, um, but I think that Jeff has a great version of it. So if you're interested in this card at all, come check it out and steal that deck list and play.
I'd be like, I was like, you got to Takanuma now. You have to Takanuma
Hmm.
now. Don't let the NT die.
Yeah,
Takanuma now.
yeah.
Because that's the unintuitive thing, I think, that the channel lands trigger the NT.
That's a big one. There's a few things that are
Yeah.
not intuitive about that deck, but once you start playing with it, holy moly, is NT like so strong. So
And I've
super sweet
considered
card.
putting Trumpeting Carnosaur in there too, because Trumpeting Carnosaur is a discard to deal 3.
That's true.
But it's a little expensive, so it's unlike like it's gonna be a tough You'll have to have a lot of mana to
You
Carnosaur
also
something and cast whatever you hit off the NT.
and Carnosaur is pretty bad because if you exile it with Inti, you can't play it.
You can't cast it
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So probably not the best actually.
But there's a lot of random stuff that is discard, and you're like, ooh, this is pretty good with Inti.
Yeah.
But my favorite is when my opponent, I've had people side in like Duress and Liliana and stuff. I'm just like, oh, well, I have an Inti on the battlefield. So
So
you realize that Duress is like really terrible.
I am fine with that happening. Yeah, it's very cool card. Really, really great. Sad we'll never see another Inti. Actually, no, that's not true. We might see another Inti. Spoiler alert if you haven't listened to our Sober Vorthos for this.
He did.
He did. He died.
Yeah.
But we know that his like what was it? His soul or something was in his like sword or his like strap or something. I can't
Oh,
remember.
right. Yeah, he's a sword now.
Yeah, it's
Something
like
like that.
yeah, his soul is in like a sword that was given to um Waita. So
Right.
anyway, figure out
Also, I
who.
was gonna say this card has wiggled its way into Pioneer. I
Oh,
think the modern version with the unbanning of Looter Scooter, which is
oh
actually
shit.
called Smuggler's Copter,
Hmm.
the new version of Rakdos midrange that's been making waves is like Inti Smuggler's Copter builds
Right.
because that's nuts.
That is
Looter Scooter
nuts.
is like draw two, discard one, and it crews it and it puts counters on it. Like, yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Oh, that sounds awful. All right.
And
Fantastic.
so the Rakdos mid-range decks are now a little lower to the ground, and they play this like Inti. Basically, they'll be able to find whatever card they need at any point because they've ripped through their library like so
Nothing.
well, and then they're discarding Croxos, right? So it's like,
Mm,
yeah, it's quite the deck.
that's
It makes me just be like, just give me the thing in Explorer, please, for the love of
oh
God. I
yeah.
want to play this deck
Well,
on
because
Arena.
yeah, that's one big thing that happened with this set is that I mean, like it wasn't about Lost Caverns of Ixalan, but it was during this time. Is that Looter Scooter was unbanned during the
Yeah,
Geological Praiser banning, but that card is not on Arena for reasons.
yeah.
They there's other banned cards that they didn't put on Arena when sets came in. Just put it on. I don't know.
Like, how much time are you saving, right? Like, how hard would it be to code this card? It cannot be difficult.
No, it cannot be difficult.
Yeah. You
So
have everything you need here, right?
yeah, it's a
It's a
vehicle.
vehicle and it loots. It doesn't do anything unique or crazy.
But it has flying, Jeff. That is really
Oh,
hard
I
to put in.
forgot. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
once flying comes to arena, then
yeah, yeah.
they'll be able to.
Once they could do that. Anyway, ridiculous. I think that's so egregious. The fact that they can't just like put that in
They should
immediately.
when they unbanned it, they should have put it on arena,
Yeah,
and I can't imagine that that was not doable.
the fact that it's over a month after and we still don't have it. Like maybe there's a chance that during the like murders update we'll get it, but like
The only thing I can see is like maybe because this is the qualifier weekend is Explorer, they
oh
didn't want to
sure,
like change the metagame
and they'll
because
put
that
it like
would drastically change the metagame
yeah,
putting this card on Arena.
that's true. That's true.
But I mean, it's been a month. Like people would have had a month. I think that would have
If
been
they could,
fine.
if they could have done it immediately, yeah. But then the holidays, the layoffs, there's a bunch of stuff going on. I
So
guess
maybe it's they're saving it for after this qualifier weekend. But
I don't know. Just slip it in. Just make it
yeah,
like a
just like Friday. Just do it on Friday.
don't
Tomorrow.
just don't tell anybody, and
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like
It's
put it
just
in.
in your collection. Wait a minute.
Well, if it was in my collection, that'd be amazing. It's not going to be in my
Yeah.
collection. It's going to be available for me to purchase. But
Ah, of
well,
course, of course,
yes,
of
yes,
course.
yes, yes.
No, no,
It's
they actually just give everyone 4 copies.
oh, oh, baby, that'd be nice. I'd like
That's the
that.
Hasbro I know.
What's going to happen is that the murderer of murders of Karlov Manor is the looter scooter. That's what, and then it's going to be a big reveal, and then
Yeah, yeah.
and then everyone gets copies
It
in their
was the
accounts.
smuggler's copter the
Oh
whole
my
time.
god, it's from Kaladesh. That's crazy. How did the looter scooter get here? Through an omen path. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, but it's actually gonna be like they're gonna put it on the client, but it's gonna be upshifted in rarity in the sense that you need both a rare and a mythic rare wildcard. The
oh yes,
graphics. Yeah,
classic.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the old days when in historic you needed two rares to make one rare.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I forgot about
Ridiculous.
that.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that that was actually a thing.
So stupid. So dumb. Um anyway,
Up next.
up next is Amalia Benavides Agriere, who
Yeah.
she also did a bunch of shit in Explorer and Pioneer with her busted combo deck.
Yeah.
That well, Jeff, you have a little bit more experience with this, but I know
I
that
actually think
this
the
was
deck's pretty
everywhere.
bad, but
Yeah.
it's doing well and it's popular, so maybe I'm just wrong. But I never seem to lose. It's one of those things where like everyone loves it, and
Hmm.
then I just never seem to lose to it. I will say it's ultra consistent. So game one is an uphill battle
Hmm.
because their combo wins the game and they just have so many ways to deal with it. And it's really easy to interact with, but you have to interact with it like 5 or 6 times because they can do it so
So
often.
often.
But they have no room, given that they have this core set of creatures that they need for the combo. They need something that triggers like life gain. So
Hmm.
the Innkeeper is the most popular one. They need Amalia, they need Wild Growth Walker, and then they need to play ways to find those cards. So whether that's Collected Company or like sometimes they play Collected Company, but they will always play
The
one of my favorite cards, Court of Calling.
hmm.
And then usually they want to have a backup plan, which is return to the ranks. So bring the combo back from their graveyard. And the thing about the combo is that if they hit it, it's very finicky and like they can combo without actually killing you because the Amalia doesn't have will have summoning sickness, so can't attack. But they will get to explore through their whole library and they'll explore right to return to the ranks, which basically means if you kill me, I'm just gonna do it again.
Hmm.
Um, so it's really hard to beat game one a lot of the time. But because they're so full of all these things in order to make their deck work, they don't have much interaction. And so I've just found game two and three, it's like you just bring in a card that says players can't gain life, and their deck does nothing. Like
Hmm.
literally nothing. They're playing a bunch of 1/3s and stuff. And so it's like, okay, well, this deck doesn't seem particularly good. You have like three fatal pushes, maybe post board to kill my thing. And that's it. That's your only hope to.
Yeah, because
You
they don't.
cannot beat this card.
It's not like a oh we can pivot into our mid range plan type of combo deck or pivot into our control plan or
Sometimes they
things like
do, but
that.
they're just the worst mid-range deck I've ever seen. It's like they
Oh.
bring in Voice of Resurgence, but they're still playing Wild Growth Walker
Hmm.
and like just terrible cards. So
Hey,
I don't
I
know.
like
I'm
Wild
not
Growth
super impressed
Walker.
with this deck, but it is putting up tournament results in Pioneer. And I will say in best of one, because I had some experience with that the past
Hmm.
weekend. This is probably the best Explorer best of one deck. You either want to play this or have a good reason to play something else,
Gotcha.
which makes it a really weird metagame because Amalia mirrors are a nightmare because someone combos off and then goes to 80 life, and then the other player's combo doesn't win because the other player's like if you kill the Amalia or whatever, and then you combo off, your Amalia stops at 20 power, but they have 80 life because they did the Amalia
Hmm.
thing first. Then both players have like 160 life, and then you're trying to figure out if you can get the Dina with an Amalia that has more than 20 power so that it never stops, and Dina is draining the whole time. It's like part two. You need to hit combo part two where your Amalia
Oh.
is over 20 power so that the loop never ends, but you need Dina out or it's a draw because the loop will go on forever. And then they
Got
kill
it.
the Dina and it draws the game. And so it's like
Oh, that sounds
it's a
awful.
horrible. That's so I was like, should I play Bali on this? Like, I really don't want to play Bali Mirrors though.
Hmm.
I'll just play like anti-creature, old school Rakdos, like steal your stuff and sack it, and
Hmm.
we'll just be fuck your creature deck
That's
dot deck. And I
that's
lost one
great.
game, which was to blue white control. I got trounced, but
Hmm.
every other game was against a creature deck, and I did play against an Amalia player who opted to draw the game against me. Um, So that was interesting because they did the thing. They went to 80 life, but I had like total control of the board. I had a Mayhem Devil with Death Touch, so
Mm.
it's like and like a
Kill
cat
everything.
oven thing
Yeah.
going. So I was like, this is gonna take a really long time because my deck's not really meant to do 80 damage.
Hmm.
But you will never assemble a board
Hmm.
because I'm gonna ping anything you killed, and so they decided to draw the game, force a draw. So like that was the kind of stuff that's happening in best of one
Gotcha. So what
Explorer.
happens when you force a draw? Actually, that's
Yeah,
like.
so so here's how the Amalia combo works, right? Amalia, whenever you gain life, she explores, and
Yes.
Wild Growth Walker, whenever you explore, you gain 3 life.
Sure.
Um, and so when you have those two cards out, it just goes forever. There's no
Hmm.
way to stop that, except that Amalia says, after you do this, if Amalia has exactly 20 power, destroy all other creatures.
Hmm.
And so the combo is you play those two cards, get her up to 20 power, explore, gain life, whatever, blow up the rest of the board, which blows up your Wild Growth Walker so the loop stops.
Hmm.
And then you're left with a 20, usually like 23, 24 power Amalia. If your Amalia has more than 20 power when you start this, the when I have exactly 20 power clause will never trigger and it will go on forever.
Hmm.
So what happens in Arena is you have to manually select your explore triggers.
Hmm.
Like that's not something you can automate. You have to decide if you want to put it in
Keep it
your
on top or
graveyard or
not put
not.
it. Yeah.
And so eventually you rope out.
Hmm.
Once you rope out on your decision making, it does like for some reason it does like 10 cycles automatically.
Hmm.
And then it just says draw.
And when you're in an event for a qualifier or play in or something, what does a draw do?
Nothing. So I think this happened at 2-0.
Hmm.
The draw happened and then I was 2-0.
That is so weird.
Yeah.
Like there's no 2-0-1 or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
the draw just nothing happens. Yeah.
that's
Because it's
so
like
bizarre.
best you have to get 6 wins before you get 2 losses. So I had
Hmm.
2 wins, I had no losses. Same thing after the draw.
That's so weird.
And actually, no, sorry. I thought I had to. I played against Amalia again later, and I thought they were going to be able to draw, but they
Hmm.
didn't. I was able to like stop them. I was playing the battle of like, I'm going to win this game unless you're able to draw. It
Hmm.
feels like
That's so
anyone who's
shitty.
played chess before, you often get into this situation where one player is
Hmm.
trying to draw and the other player is trying to win. That's what it felt like in this game against
It sounds
Amalia.
awful. That makes me not want to play chess ever, and that just no,
Pretty
that's
common,
not.
but like the player who's playing the black pieces is looking to draw a lot of the time. The player who's playing the white pieces is like, I had the definitive advantage. I want to win.
Oh, I guess I don't know enough about chess, but that sounds horrible. I liked watching the Queen's Gambit, and then I was like, oh, I could play chess, and then I started playing
Yeah.
chess again. I was like, I don't really want to play chess, but that's just
Yeah,
me.
it's hard.
Um,
I
let's
don't
keep
like that like my cell phone can kick my ass. I think that's
that
what killed
sucks.
chess for me is like
Mhm.
I don't know. AI is just too good at it now. And
It is.
so
There's a lot of things that AI does that I don't want them to do.
there's like high
Um,
level grandmaster chess tournaments where people accused I don't know if you heard about this. They accused a woman of having a computer in her lipstick
what the fuck?
because she would put on lipstick or something. I think as a
Hmm.
nervous kind of tear, whatever, she would
Yeah, yeah.
reapply her lipstick, and she beat a male. And the
Hmm.
only way that that could have happened
Right.
for her to beat a man was she must have been cheating somehow. And the only way he
Yeah.
could possibly come up with was for lipstick, so that he accused her of
Obviously,
using
because she's a
having
woman,
a computer.
she has a little tiny brain because all women do.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
To be
for
fair, I think this was in like Russia or something, so they
oh
might
yeah, of
actually
course. Well,
be
actually,
fair.
Russian women have teeny tiny
Yeah,
brains.
extremely. And
Yeah, yeah.
Russian
But
men
men,
have
huge
huge
brains.
brains.
Obviously, that's all fucking bullshit. But um, I just want to say that. Let's get back. You keep taking me off course. I know. So I don't. You don't know as a listener, but sometimes Jeff has like a thing where he decides that he's going to try to get me off topic as much as possible, and it's
Yeah,
happening right now. So
pretty good at
he's winning the
it.
episode, and I'm
Yeah.
losing horribly. But Quintorius Canned is another card that did really well. It
Yeah.
was a geological appraiser type situation. Um, And for standard, we got the rest of the Restless Land cycle. Those were all the cards that were really
think,
important for formats in Constructed.
I think Quintorius is also standard, like plausible, but he's suffering from the 3-year standard. Like we have too many
Yes,
good
too
cards in
many good
standard right
cards.
now,
Yeah.
and well-defined archetypes that he doesn't fit into. But I've seen people try the whole like Pia Nalar,
Mm-hmm.
or
But like,
whatever Pia something
yeah.
something exile cards, and when you cast them, you get Thopters and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
Quintorius would be excellent there. So um,
Yeah.
I think there's hope. Quintorius is a powerful enough card that there's hope. But people relate his passive to Shieldred as like, oh, it's really good. It's like Shieldred's ability, and it's like, but we have Shieldred. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you just play Shieldred then?
I mean, like, it's also better than Shieldred because you can do it multiple times a turn. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously you can do
you
that.
can do Shieldred
You
multiple
can
times.
force your opponent to draw a bunch of cards. That's true. But this is just you doing cool stuff. Um, but with that, it's a perfect place to like just slide right into like. I want to quickly touch on some of the mechanics before we get to our worthless slots because now that we are off topic, we're going to run long. Thanks, Jeff. But
What I do
um,
best.
I know it really is. It's perfect time to talk about Discover. Was this a mistake of a mechanic? Did they need to make a Cascade that was better than Cascade?
So I don't think so. I think Discover is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think they did a good job of fixing Cascade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously there was that bullshit kind of deck that I'm glad is gone in Explorer slash Pioneer, but that was an easy fix, right? Just ban it, and they did
Mm-hmm.
that immediately. So I think in terms of limited, I think Discover's been pretty cool in limited, and
Yeah,
I think in standard this red black Discover, even though I don't think it's a great deck, like
it's cool.
it's cool.
I I agree, and Discover came out, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, it's just like fucking way better at Cascade and all this stuff." And we obviously had bans, and all that stuff happened. And yes, it's a powerful mechanic where you get to draw a card if you can't play it, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But honestly, if this was what Cascade was the whole time, they're just they're just opening the door for better design space for themselves. So
That's
you
the
can
thing. It's Cascade, but they have more control over it. It doesn't
yeah,
always have to be the mana cost, right? So they can just put
exactly.
Discover 3, Discover 2.
Yeah.
So it lets them control how powerful the
They can
card
just
is.
do more stuff with it. It's more interesting. And they've
And it's
learned
not a
that.
cast trigger either, usually.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's come up a few times in my game where I'm like, wait, they reanimated this. Oh, right, it's not Cascade. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. They
Yeah.
reanimated that totally works. You
Hmm.
reanimate your trumpeting Carnosaur, that's bad for me.
Yes. Which is just more ETB stuff, which is just good. Like you
But
can
it
double
also
up
makes
on
it
ETB
like
stuff.
easier to interact with, right? Like I can just
Hmm.
counter your if you counter a
Hmm.
cascade spell, like you
They
there
still
was the whole
cascade.
thing where you had to wait for the cascade and counter that, but then
Hmm.
they still get the original spell.
Yeah.
And so this is a little more, you can fight back a bit.
Yeah. It's in more ways. It also means that you can double up on your discover triggers, which is like a big roaming throne thing. That card was big in standard commander.
Like never
Um,
seen it.
no, that card was just basically like commander player. It's like $40 or something because commander players are like,
Jesus, really?
yeah, because it just
I don't
goes
even
in
really
like
know what it does. It like chooses a creature type and then
it's like a panharmonicon
uh
essentially for it.
oh yeah, okay, that would be good in Commander.
Yeah, so it it's a panharmonicon that's a creature. It's a 4/4, and it has ward 2. It just I don't know. I I I don't like do nothing enchantment shit. So or artifact. It doesn't matter. We're not even
I
talking
mean,
about
it's a 4/4, I guess. So
that. If you attack him 10 times, you win the game, Jeff.
yeah, 10-turn clock, or
Hmm.
in Timeless, 3-turn clock.
Yeah. uh, anyway, um, but that was great. What did you think of Craft? I thought Craft was really awesome. I had a lot of fun with it in draft.
So coming into uh the format, like reading the previews and stuff, I thought this was so weird and
Hmm.
like the other mechanics I'm really vibing with. This one's like the odd one out. It's super weird. I don't really get it. But after playing with it in limited and occasionally against the adventurous standard player who would
Hmm.
have crafting going on, I think it's really cool. I think the fact that you can craft with your graveyard is what makes it. Like, if you
Hmm.
couldn't do that, it would be the. And I think when I first read
It'd
it,
be
I was just like,
awful.
"Oh, you have to like use artifacts you already have and play." It was a horrible, horrible mechanic. Um, but no, you basically are always choosing things in your graveyard, and
Yeah, if you can.
like that's the default.
Hmm.
Um, no, this was a very cool mechanic,
Hmm.
and uh, I didn't draft a ton. I did some drafting, but I thought like this really allowed them to make these cards that are really marginal early game cards, but then have effects in the late game. Like I think the classic is the iceberg,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
which is like a much higher pick than I would have had it at when I was first drafting, because it just has that kind of does something early and then actually affects the game
Wins the
late.
game. Like,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, you have bad blocks slash I have vigilance. Like,
Ooh, yeah. I have a giant creature that like
yeah,
taps your things down. Yeah, I think it gives them a lot of control, and I think Magic designers have gotten to this point where we want them to have a lot of knobs to tweak over their cards because they're going
exactly.
to get them into a really great spot.
This is exactly the same thing as the discover thing. Like
Yeah,
craft is just craft with whatever. They can be like craft with artifact is what we got, but you can have craft with,
and they
we
can
had.
choose the mana costs or the cost. It doesn't
Mhm.
even have to be mana necessarily, but whatever
You
cost
you
you
can
have to
craft
pay
with
for
creature
it.
types. You craft with land types. You craft with different permanent types. You craft with
Yeah,
instants and sorceries. You could do anything. You craft with life. You could do a ton of stuff. Um, and I think that this is awesome. We have to see this again. Like this is a great
yeah.
mechanic.
It was
Um,
cool. I would love to see, like, I don't know what spin I would recommend, what I would suggest, but I'd love to see them just tackle it in a new way because they are often really good at that. Like taking
yeah,
a mechanic, doing it again, but doing it in such a different way than the first time. Like,
exactly. It is so
uh,
interesting because if we were in a block format where like we had Lost Caverns of Ixalan and then did two more small sets, we
oh
would have
yeah, they could have done some cool stuff with these
we
mechanics.
would have got like craft with artifact would be the first one, and then it would be like craft with island and whatever, and then
Yeah,
they'd
yeah,
keep
yeah.
moving on, and then you'd be like, what else are they
Oh,
gonna do with craft?
what
It's
are they gonna
crazy.
craft with now?
Yeah, exactly.
Craft with
Um,
cards in hand or something.
ooh, craft with cards in hand. That sounds awful. I don't want to do that, but I like it. Um,
I'd be like, "Excuse me, Judge, does this count as discarding cards for my inti?" Be like, "No,
no, it's
that's not what
exiling. You're like, oh shit.
happened." Well, that sucks.
Hmm. Anyway,
Um,
super love it. Um,
yeah,
I,
it played way better than it read a little clunky and weird to me. And then when
mhm.
I played it, I was like, "This actually feels more natural than I was giving it credit for
Yes.
in like just reading the cards."
Well, because the fucking text box is like huge.
Yeah,
Like
exactly, right. And I'm like, "What do? You can either pick something in play or in your graveyard. It has to
it's
be
so
what they
funny
said."
because normally cards that have a bunch of words on them, and all craft cards have double sides, so like they tend
Yeah,
to
right.
be cards that I'm like, ugh, too much. But that text box, like I could always just disregard it because I just saw craft with, and I was like, oh, it's all reminder text. I don't care. I know what it does.
Right.
And once I figured out the graveyard thing, I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah. That took me a few drafts where I was like, oh, right, you can use your graveyard. God damn.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to say map tokens are awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
These are great.
They've figured out these like artifact tokens that do the mechanic or do the thing are just
Hmm.
amazing. Like
Yeah.
clue tokens are cool, blood tokens are cool, map tokens are cool. Like,
Treasure
use
tokens.
them. I mean, hey, treasure tokens are maybe a little too good,
Those are
but
that's the line. If they do anything more
yeah.
than treasure tokens, food tokens, awesome, love it.
Food tokens, yeah, those might be
Yeah,
one of the best ones because they're the
because they
weakest, but like
yeah,
that makes them the
but they're
coolest
still
one.
good, like in
Yeah.
a weird way. And then descend, descended, and fathomless descent. All those like variations of putting permanent cards in your graveyard from different ways.
Yeah.
Um, I like that they added. This almost just feels like an old mechanic that has a word now.
Yeah. This feels like the block thing again, right? Like one
Hmm.
of these would have had descend in the first form, and then they would have
Hmm.
changed descend a little bit in the second one, and the third one they would have
And then
changed it again.
fathomless descent at the end. They're like,
Right.
wow, you know. But we
Yeah.
get it all front loaded into one set, which feels really complicated and confusing. Um, so this feels like, I think ultimately, just talking about Lost Caverns of Ixalan, it kind of feels like this set is a lot of. It feels kind of like an entire block shoved together. I know we've had other versions of that. Like I think New Capena kind of felt like it could have been a little bit fleshed out. I think Call Time felt like it could have been fleshed out. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but this one specifically with the mechanics, it feels like the first time we've actually been like, hey, you could have done this over a year, and
This
we,
is a block that's crushed
yeah,
into one set. Yeah.
exactly, like mechanic wise, as opposed
Yeah.
to story wise, which the other ones
I'm
felt
also
more like
not
that.
totally sure I get a permanent going to the graveyard in any way is me like descending deeper into the caverns. Like
You're the permanent.
so I'm dead.
Yeah. No. You are going to the earth into the underworld, I guess. I don't know. Don't shut up.
Like from your hand, I kind of get that, but I think
Hmm.
to make it more playable, they had to like open it up to like if something dies on the
Yeah.
battlefield,
Or from your
that's
library.
descending.
But it
Or
has to
right.
be a card. It can't be a token, which is the biggest thing that
Yeah.
everyone was confused about
Yeah.
when this first started, which is not a fail, but the reason. So if Descend worked with any token, the Rakdos deck would have been really good in this format for draft.
Mhm.
Because it didn't, Rakdos was bad, and that was like
Yeah. I wonder if
that's
it used to work with tokens in like some point in
mhm.
development, and they removed that.
Yeah, probably.
That'd be my guess, because I think it just ended up being like, man, these map tokens are going wild on this like,
Yeah,
descending stuff.
I could totally see that
Um,
for sure, for sure, for sure.
but you know what it does work with? Inti. Inti discards a permanent.
That's true.
It's I said earlier I don't love Inti on turn two. I do love it when I have Stalker on turn one and it's just a 3/3 now. And it's
So
like,
good. That's what
yes.
you do. That's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to do the most. Like the NT discarding stuff was like I get counters. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I
That's
now have a 3/3 menace and a 2/2, and I'm gonna like on turn two,
yeah.
and I'm gonna be discarding stuff and drawing cards and putting more counters,
Mhm.
and like I'm probably gonna Gix next turn. It's just like, what are you gonna do? What are you
It's so
gonna do,
good.
opponent? Unless you have temporary lockdown in your main deck, I think you fucked.
I hate that card. Temporary lockdown is awful. It's
Yeah, fuck
disgusting.
that card.
Fuck that card.
Temporary lockdown and farewell can both like just get the fuck out.
And Sunfall. They just like go
They
up.
can see that. I don't mind Sunfall that much.
I
It's
hate
the other
Sunfall.
ones where I'm just like, you can see your way out.
Yeah.
I've had enough of you.
No. Anyway, Jeff, we are far too deep into this happy hour to just be getting to our worthless slots right now, but let's do it.
Worthless lots.
All right. So these are our worthless slots. These are cards that we thought were going to be worth a slot in your deck during our first Sips episode. So if you want to hear, well, we're going to talk a little bit about why we picked them, but hopefully we can get these through these fairly quickly because we do have some favorite cards at the end of this before we start rating our beer.
Absolutely.
So we have, well, actually, Jeff, you always explain. So Jeff, explain our different tiers really quickly.
Absolutely. So these are I'm told sports themed. So we have our layups. These are the things that we thought for sure you would see. Like no doubt about it, this card's going to see some play. We have our 3 pointers. These are cards that are powerful enough to see play. And we're generally talking about standard here. We would usually make an explicit, like I'm talking about Explorer.
Hmm.
Um, but usually we'll just talk about standard. So the 3 pointer is powerful enough to see play, but it would need the right archetype, or like, things would have to land favorably. Half court is basically cards we would love to be good enough to make it, but are probably not. And then overrated and underrated, I think, are sort of self-explanatory.
They definitely are. Jeff, I started us off, I believe, for this round, so I will just go right into it. My layup. No, sorry. It's
It's
one of
not how
these.
you. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this is
not
how
how
you
you.
lay up. You lay up
That's
like
not how
this.
you play baseball. Okay,
Yeah,
Zach.
obviously. Don't even get me started on people doing sports ball jokes. Okay, we know what basketball is. Let's go. Um, I picked for my layup.
Toronto
What?
Raptors. Woohoo!
Sure. Um, the Tishana's Tidebinder that gets a check mark.
Yeah,
Tishana's
I
Tidebinder.
I play against that card often.
Yeah, it's around a lot. It get it like I was playing the like Liliana the other day, and I was like, wow, I don't need to plus this because if they have Tishana's Tidebinder, I don't get to use it ever again now. So let's maybe not that type of thing. Um,
Yeah,
this card's all over the place. It most often is used to turn like shut down your opponent's schooner. I think that's something that happens quite often.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, this card's
Do you
it's
counter the crew? Is that what you do?
yes,
Okay.
counter the crew.
Okay.
Um, so unless you have good blocks on it for whatever reason, you just want to stop and explore. But like no, you would counter the crew. Um,
I will say,
good.
like, I play against this card a lot, and it's not as insane as we originally thought. I think mostly because it's so telegraphed. Like your opponent just like has 3 mana, some of which is
Mm-hmm,
blue. And so like you're saying, you're like, maybe I just don't activate Liliana because they definitely have Tidebinder. On the one hand, that means it's warping your decision making, which means
mm-hmm.
it's
It's good.
obviously good,
Yeah.
but it's good if they get you with it.
Mm-hmm,
A lot of the times I'm like, this is a trigger I'm okay letting go of, and then they just have a 3/2 flash, which is
mm-hmm.
fine, but it's not like
Yeah.
like every time I play, I'm just like, okay, I'm playing against blue black. They have 3 mana up. I'm thinking of Tidebinder. They have 4 mana up. It's
Mm-hmm.
Urtide. Like, how
Yeah.
do we play around that? And it is possible to play around it. And
Oh,
so,
absolutely. And that's what you were kind of talking about when we were first initiating it. I was saying all the very like regular, hey, this stops Atraxa, this does blah blah blah, this stuff. And it
like, just
does,
don't crew your schooner into,
yeah.
Tidebinder.
That's one of those things. Killing a Tidebinder isn't that difficult. Eventually, you get your schooner back,
Right, you
things
get
like
your
that.
thing back. Yeah. And I
But the
often do that. I'll be like, I'll plus Liliana to make them play their Tidebinder now.
mhm.
That taps them out. And then I play this card that I actually want to resolve, or just
Yeah,
kill your fucking Tidebinder or whatever.
things
Like,
like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
And it still counters the trigger. So it's not like
mhm,
I'm super far ahead in that interaction, but it is something I can sort of force them to do it by
mhm.
putting a trigger on the stack that I know they
Yeah.
want to counter.
Them paying 3 mana to stop themselves from discarding a card is pretty good for you, I think. Um,
Right. And it actually stopped both of us from discard. Like I would have
exactly. You
discarded
don't
as
have to
well.
discard a card
Although
either.
generally my deck
You
is
would like to
happy to
do that.
discard. Yeah.
But anyway, Tidebinder everywhere. It was a successful layup. Jeff, what was your layup for this set?
Okay, so my layup was Thousand Moon Smithy, which I've put a big old next to at the moment, but I still maintain that we could see this card at some point. I think
Mm-hmm,
it is powerful enough. There's just nothing. I thought like white, like mono white sort of creature decks would
mm-hmm.
be more prevalent than they are. That's basically not really a thing in standard anymore. I never run into it. If I'm playing against white, it's with other colors going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's what I'll say. Maybe if something like the Wandering Emperor rotates out, so next year,
Mm-hmm.
this becomes a 4 drop you're more interested in white creature decks. Um, Especially since like the cards that are rotating out in white creature decks are so powerful right now that maybe we do have to wait to rotation. I've seen this card in like the artifact blue white kind of control. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've seen this deck, but like the
Yeah, I've played against this deck.
everyone
Um,
has their own like jank version of it because it's not
mhm.
sort of there's no agreed upon list because it's not really a meta deck. But this card sort of shows up, but no, I mean as a layup, this was a I missed this layup for sure.
Well, I just want to tell you this is fighting on your side that today there was an article published on magic.gg talking about a bunch of standard decks that were in RCQs. This was Magic Online. but like 2 to 3% of the meta was this Azorius Craft deck. It's like a blue-white control deck.
Actually, I do know that it is a slightly more
Mhm.
common occurrence on MTGO. I think
And
probably because it's dirt cheap. It's probably like,
that makes a lot of sense,
yeah.
because the cards aren't being played a lot of other places. But there was one player, Mukubi, who finished 17th in like a 143 player qualifier.
All right, that's not
That
bad. That's like
that
tied for eighth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did fairly well, and they were playing 3 copies of Smithy. So
All right,
that's
I'll take it. I'll
yeah.
take it.
I will
Like
say
this
that.
card is really good. It's just
Mhm.
it's hard to walk into. First of all, this set is probably one of the hardest ones we could have had
It
to
was
be the
difficult.
first set of no rotation.
Hmm. It
Because
was
there's so many
this.
good cards.
It
And I
was the
remember saying
second
at the time we were
technically,
like,
but yeah.
"Oh yeah, yeah, that's right." I remember we were saying at the time like there are so many cards to choose from, and none of them seem to stand out above others. There are just lots of really good cards.
It was really hard.
But
So yeah, but with that being said, my 3 pointer was Squirming Emergence, which,
yeah,
if you don't remember, it's the 3 mana Golgari sorcery that reanimates um, a card from your graveyard that equal to the permanence.
based
It's
on your
mana.
fathomless descent.
Exactly. Thank you. As I'm burping through this, but that I tried playing 1 copy of. I wanted anything. Just give me anything with it. I thought
Yeah.
maybe it would fit in the Golgari deck, something. That deck has kind of gone to the wayside a little bit, and we're not
Oh
interested in
yeah,
it
I
at all.
forgot about Golgari mid range.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it didn't work
yeah,
out.
I think like I said at the time, if this was an enchantment that did this on ETB, that'd be a whole different card
Yeah,
because the
because it's a
problem
permanent.
is you don't want sorceries in your
Hmm.
descent deck.
Exactly.
And I even built a few descent decks and I cut anything that was not a permanent because
Hmm.
it was just
There's
so
a
when you're
liability.
playing them, yeah, you really need to be able to rely on if I mill 3 cards, that adds 3 to my descent or whatever.
Hmm. Every single time.
Um,
You can't hit
yeah.
discard randomly.
And so the card has to be incredible to be a non-permanent card
And you
in a
said
descent
that
deck.
when I picked it, and you were right. So I'll give that to you. But what was your 3 pointer, Jeff?
Okay, so mine was O'Hare Ajunil,
Hmm.
Deepest Might. This is the red god that basically it if you were to deal any non-combat damage, it deals damage equal to its power instead of however much you're gonna do, and it's a 4/4 originally. I'm gonna give myself this one because it does what I was saying it does. It's really good in decks with red pingers. So there was a mono red deck in Pioneer actually that was playing this
Mm.
as the top end, and obviously Anvil lists though. I haven't run into a ton of them anymore, but whenever you see an Anvil list, it usually has this card these days
Hmm.
because Anvil's just full of pingers.
If this set did not birth Inti, I think Jeff would have been playing a lot more of this card. But
Yeah,
because it birthed
Inti.
Inti, that
Fucking
changed
Inti's
everything.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I will say is, was I in Mythic or was this Diamond? But I was against an opponent who was playing this card, as well as the, I'm never gonna remember the name of this, but it's the Phyrexian who doubles. Um, there's the red Phyrexian Praetor, or not Praetor, but like
What are you saying?
there was like a cycle in, I want to say New Phyrexia of these cards. Dominus. Okay, so there was the
Oh,
red.
not New
Um,
Fire. You're talking about All Will Be One, the Dominus
all will be
one. Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Solfium Mayhem Dominus. It says if a source
Hmm.
you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or a permanent, it deals double that damage instead.
Hmm.
This does not work the way that you want it to work, and you should not play these 2 cards together.
Hmm.
Um, so I just thought it was funny because my opponent was like, "Oh my god, it's going to deal double uh, O'Hare Ash O'Neill's damage." The thing is, the way these things works is whoever's taking the damage actually gets to stack the triggers. because it's a replacement effect.
Yeah.
It's like a judge thing or whatever. But
Hmm.
it happened to me, and I got to choose how it was ordered, and I was like, oh, actually, you're gonna do fuck all.
Yeah.
That's great. At first, I was like, oh my God, is this gonna be 8 damage from a ping?
Hmm.
Like, no, it is not.
No.
No, it is not, because I'm actually gonna choose to
Take.
do it the other
I could
way.
take two.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can I take two? Is that cool?
That sucks.
Um,
For your opponent, for you, it's great.
yeah, but we both had a fun life lesson that, or magic lesson that day, and
Hmm.
my opponent just conceded after I stacked the triggers. And I was just like,
Yeah, and they realize that that's one of those moments where you're like, "Oh, my deck doesn't do what I thought," and that's why this is
oh
one of
yeah,
the
and I've been on the other side of that so many
so many
times. Yeah,
times. So this is the number one reason why I think that we should be able to build whatever deck we want and play it against Sparky, so that we can learn what cards do.
right. Just for the basic interactions. Yeah,
So if we had like a Sparky queue where you had a God account, every player would have a God account and you could play against Sparky, but Sparky sucks and it's not fun magic, but you could play every card just to learn how they work, because sometimes
yeah.
little things like this, and then you lose your mythic wild cards, your rare wild cards
And that
because of
it
this.
would be so helpful because after this game, I literally Googled like, why did I win this game? Essentially, like,
Hmm.
why did it let
That's
me choose?
hmm
And then there was some like, there was already a Reddit thread about it, like how do
yeah,
these two cards interact? And
all
some
that
judge
stuff,
was like, oh, it's a replacement effect, and so
because
the opponent
they
gets to
are.
choose.
It's because there's two separate placement effects. Um,
Exactly,
yeah,
and I guess in that situation, the person being affected is who gets to choose.
that's crazy. Who knew that you could stack your opponent's triggers? Um,
Yeah.
we have a half court shot. Half court shots are your hey, maybe this will work. These usually don't go in, so don't get mad. But mine was especially egregious. I think I would must have been, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking when I said this, but um,
And you
I
certainly forgot it was 3 year standard. But,
yes, I definitely did for sure. Calamitous Cave In was my pick. This is a 3 year standard mistake.
yeah. Like maybe in a freshly rotated format, caves could
Where
be
you
a
have
thing for
like,
a small period of time.
but no, there's no way that caves would be any sort of standard deck.
Yeah.
Anything. To the fact that like Calamitous Cave In is the red cave card that wipes their board equal to the caves you have in your in play in graveyard. Um, this card, you can't even play this in draft. Like caves was awful in draft. Like it's not even like a real
Because you have to
deck.
spend so many picks on lands.
Yeah, but I think it's less so about the amount of picks you have to use on lands, and more so about the payoffs just weren't really there. Like the
Right.
fact the
Yeah.
white payoff for caves doesn't work with discover, because you only get it like when you play the enchantment, you only get bats based on the amount of caves you tapped for it.
Oh, that throws me off every time. You can
Yeah.
only ever get 3 bats. I'm always like,
Yes.
oh, I'm gonna slam this, get like 7 bats. And
No.
then I'm just like, three. Oh, right.
Yeah. And so then
This
when you
card
if you
sucks.
sacrifice your cave to go through your deck, one of your payoffs is white. You play that, you get 0 bats. It's useless. Like yeah, so that was a huge miss. Like just a horrible miss, and that made like this card was, if you were trying to build the deck, you might be able to get 3/3 with this card, but like it was not good. Honestly, like
And I
the
could see it being a little absurd, like if it was just, oh, you get 7 bats or whatever. Like
mhm.
maybe they were worried about that. But
Yeah, it
like,
would
I
be
don't know,
absurd.
you should pay off the player who's doing the crazy draft thing and is committing so
Yeah.
many of their picks to lands, and like
I
draft is already self like correcting. So
Exactly. I would say that it would have to be your caves in play, instead of,
yeah.
because a lot of the caves
Yeah,
cards
yeah,
say like
yeah,
in
yeah,
play
yeah,
and
for
in
sure.
graveyard.
And graveyard. No, that'd be
Hmm.
stupid. Especially in a
And
mill yourself format. That'd be
yes,
so dumb.
and
I make 15 bats.
yeah, what the fuck? I do also remember that in Dominaria United we had that like defender card that entered the battlefield and made a bunch of like
Oh
one
yeah, yeah, yeah.
ones equal to
That
your
card was
defenders.
incredible.
And that ended up being one of the best cards in the set because you could tutor it and it was awful.
But like
So
what I'm saying is if this is one of the best cards in the set, but you have to jump through the hoop of drafting all the
a bunch
caves,
of lands.
I
That's
think
true.
that's all right. That was just like, oh, you're just blue white defenders or whatever.
Exactly. That's true.
Yeah.
So anyway, this card was a huge miss, and like if you're a miss in draft too, like you just
Yeah.
that's just a useless card. Like
I think my card's probably a miss in draft as well.
your card's much less of a miss in draft, I would say. But you go ahead, give us your half court
All right, I
shot.
picked Throne of the Grim Captain. This was the thing that if you have like one of each of the Ixalan types of vampire,
Mm-hmm.
merfolk, dinosaur, and pirate,
Mm-hmm.
then you craft with that, and it turns into this,
Fucking
I don't know,
busted,
big
awesome,
flying demon thing. Um, in
big
reality,
flying demon thing.
it's just too hard to make that happen. But
Mm-hmm. First of all, I just want to say it's not a demon. It's a 7/7 skeleton spirit pirate. It's still a pirate, but it's not any of
oh,
the
I
other
love
things.
that. It's none of the
Yeah,
other things. Yeah,
yeah.
but, it's good in our skeleton kindred deck that we have.
Yeah, there you go. Trying to build that together.
Yeah,
Um,
we just have to find a skeleton pirate, a skeleton dinosaur, a
mhm.
skeleton merfolk, and
Yeah. Um, I will say that this card actually worked. It was possible.
yeah,
But the deck you're trying to build is like the blue in draft. Sorry, we were talking about draft.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
you're trying to build like the blue black mill deck because black gives
Right.
you vampires, and blue
And
gives
you
you
want them in
merfolk,
their
obviously.
graveyard for craft, anyways.
Yes, you want them. So you're milling a bunch of stuff, and then the black dinosaur is actually pretty good. It's the
Oh, stay,
cycler.
Stegus, Stagtail,
Yeah, spike tail,
Spiketail.
whatever. That's a great card to put into your
Yep,
graveyard.
the cycling. Yeah.
And so this card ended up being great in specifically that deck. If you're trying to build this in other things, it's basically a blue black card, but it just doesn't look like it.
Right.
So you could do it, but it wasn't this five color craziness that it looks like on its face. You just need to for sure know that all the land cyclers are dinosaurs, and you have to have that land cycler,
Right.
um, or one of the land cyclers from them. But anyway, cool card, but definitely didn't get there. I did actually see there's a streamer, Hamhawks 42. This
Mm.
guy, super nice dude, awesome streams, great guy.
Excellent purveyor of jank brews. Like,
Yes,
if you want a
amazing.
competitive but jank brew, check out
He's part of
this
like the
person's stream.
Magic Jank like crew. There's a whole bunch of them. Super cool.
Yeah.
But he had a sweet deck
But
list for
he's one of the
this.
ones that I think builds some of the most competitive lists of that
Okay,
part.
well that's great. Yeah, we'll have to tell him that we think that. But yeah, he had a Throne of the Grim Captain deck in Standard that performed. It was actually pretty sick.
See, that's what
Um,
I'm saying. Every time I tune in, I'm like, "Well, this is garbage," and then
mhm.
you can win with it. So
Yeah.
maybe he's just an excellent player, and his brews are awful. But I think it's a little of both.
I think it's a
I
little of
think
both.
he's a good deck builder and a good player.
Yeah. And any streamer that I want to grab a beer with,
Yeah,
a-okay in my
yeah,
book,
yeah.
like for sure. I'm like, ooh, you get like bonus points.
That's the
Um,
litmus test for us. It's like,
yeah.
would I beer with you?
Hmm. That's huge. If you go to a convention or something and you want to meet somebody that you like, maybe you listen to limited resources and you're like, man, Marshall seems super cool. I want to hang out with him. Let's go grab a beer. But you can't. Marshall doesn't drink beer. You should know that. So don't
Yeah,
ask
that's
Marshall
that's
for
the
a beer.
reason you can't grab a beer with Marshall Zuckerman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely that, not because he's really busy and has a bunch of things he has to do and he's doing coverage or whatever.
But
Um,
then when like Corey Baumeister is doing
ooh,
I'm like, I would
well,
grab a beer with this guy for
I'd
sure.
grab a beer with Corey, and who does
Aelin.
Aelin? Yeah, who does stuff with him? They are the
Yeah, I
best for
love that
coverage.
team.
They're
That's
the
one of my
best.
favorites.
Every
Yeah,
time they're on, I always make sure to tweet about them and how great they are
yeah,
because I want someone to know they're my favorite. Put them on the big matches.
yeah, yeah.
Apparently Paul Cheon's gone, so let's get them on the big ones. Marshall can
That's
do
right.
whatever.
That's true. Yeah.
But I really like them.
Paul's back to
Um,
streaming like boomer vintage cubes and stuff.
oh, all right. So no competition for me. Fantastic, because there's
Yeah.
no way I can beat Paul Cheon at anything. Um, all right. So we have some overrated, underrated cards. We have to get to our favorite cards.
Yes. I mean, the
So
overrated, underrated were pretty clear cut, so we can
yeah,
kind
it's
of.
pretty quick. I said that Deep Root Pilgrimage, which is that blue enchantment that when you tap a Merfolk, it makes him 1/1 hexproof Merfolk, was overrated.
I've literally seen that card like twice. It was both in draft decks, and they lost the game because they cast that instead of doing anything else. So.
Yeah. I've also saw it in standard. It was not good. On arena, this card's terrible. Maybe
Yeah,
in modern, I don't even know.
doesn't seem good enough.
The only thing you might need it for is one copy in your like Merfolk commander deck with that guy who like from original Ixalan who only cares about tapping Merfolk, and that's his all of his abilities tap
Kumano?
Merfolk. Kumano, yeah,
Is it Kumano?
yeah, Kumano. Um, Kumano? No, that's not right. Something like
No,
it's
that's no. Kumano faces Kakazan.
Kakazan.
That's
That's
what I'm
not
thinking.
right.
It's
Um,
something like that. I don't know.
it's something like that. It's like
The
Kuma.
3 drop, right?
Yeah. He cares about his
He was actually
name's
pretty good.
Kumena.
Kumena. Yeah. Kumena, right?
So he cares about tapping Merfolk specifically. And so when if you tap a Merfolk and make another Merfolk, that's really good for
Right.
that deck. That is the
Yeah.
only reason you should ever play that card. That card's awful. Um, and I was right.
Yeah. I remember the like Kumena Court of Calling decks that were going around.
Mm,
Um, or Kumena Convoke, I guess.
yeah.
I picked Bloodletter of Aclazotz purely because a bunch of people, not just one person, I saw it multiple times. People were saying this is the Black Torbran.
Hmm.
Get the hell out of here. This card sucks, and Torbran was amazing. And
Yeah.
I think I was correct.
Yeah. This card is not super great. In draft, it was difficult to cast. That was the biggest
Yeah.
downside. Also, black wasn't aggressive enough for it.
I mean,
So,
your typical draft deck is like 9/8 land split.
mhm.
You can't cast one black with that. So
On turn 4, you maybe it's the turn 7
consistently,
card, but like a 2/4 on turn 7.
more likely you're going to lose because this is sitting in your hand and you can't cast it.
Yeah,
And
makes
it's
sense.
going to
Makes
do
sense.
any sort of crazy thing.
Underrated cards. I said O'Hare Pak Patik Deepest Epoch, which is the blue god. Um, this one
I've played
missed.
against it a few times. I
Yeah.
won those games.
Well, there you go. This
It's just a
card,
little too slow, I think.
it's a little slow. It's a little slow and a little spellsy, and we're not really in a blue
Right.
spells type of world right now. Um,
I'm not sure we ever will be again.
mhm.
Creatures are too good these days that like even the control decks have to play creatures.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Well, they have flash and shit. So yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
didn't get there, but it was a really cool card. It didn't get to do the like it was doing busted like adventure stuff, and we just didn't get there with the that. So
Yeah.
oh well.
I mean, it's extremely powerful. It's just you're probably dead before you get to take advantage
Yeah.
of it. I picked the Myco Tyrant, and I think I'm the only one. Well, you obviously played it as
Hmm.
well, but I think
I
I'm the
did.
only one I've seen play this card.
I
So
have not seen people play this card. It's really cool though.
it's been awesome when I play it,
Hmm.
and when you've played it, I've seen like when you streamed that deck, you had some of the coolest like wins.
It
Like
was
way cooler than all the wins I got with it. I was like, oh, that's
well.
awesome.
That's good. I'm
It's
glad. I'm
just
glad.
this guy's like living the dream of the reason I put that card in the deck.
Hmm.
And like the what's the dragon that sacks something and sends it at their face?
Oh, fucking
Zeotora. The
Ziatora.
Zeotora sack win. I never got one of those really, but you did. I was like, yes, that's why it's there.
That was so good. It was so fun. That was a sweet deck. Sweet deck list. Once again, another reason to be in our Discord. You could play that deck as well. Um, so, but that Jeff, let's go to something new. We need to get to our favorite cards from the set. So, I have only some stipulations. There's one I would like to add, which I am surprising you right now because I thought that I added it earlier and I did not. Um, but we're going to choose our favorite card for limited, standard, explorer, timeless, and then our favorite art. You don't have to have an answer for all of these because sometimes there aren't answers for all of them, and that's totally fine.
Right.
Timeless is a new format. There aren't cards that crack into it very often, but there's a card that did, and I just wanted to talk about it. So that's the reason I added this to this
I
list.
was like, ooh, timeless. All right, I
Hmm.
didn't think about that one.
Hmm. Those are all the formats that we care about: limited, standard, explorer, and timeless.
Can I just
So
pick the same card for all of them, or
sure, yeah,
is
it'd be
that
really
frowned upon?
it'll be frowned upon, but you can do it.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you're going to be invited back next week as well. Like
Oh,
you
yeah, that's
yeah,
right. I can do whatever I want.
exactly. It's your show. Um, but if Jeff's going to say
Eh.
the same card for everything, let me start then.
Yeah.
Um, so we're starting with limited, which is the best format and the reason we play Magic, obviously. Uh,
You
so
know, there's a time when I would have agreed with that,
mhm,
but Arena has changed that because now I
it's so
can actually
funny.
just play the best cards.
I just like feel almost the opposite where it's
It
like
makes me value
I
constructed more.
I can draft all of the time and I
Right.
never have to do anything else. I'm playing draft
Why
as
would
much
I,
as
why would I
possible.
bother?
So my favorite card. So favorite cards don't have to be good. They just have
Yeah.
to be cards that you
Uh,
love. It just so happens that my favorite cards are cards that are good. And
I mean, that tends to happen as
yeah,
well,
it tends
right?
to happen. This card, Jeff said it himself that every time he's watching me draft on stream, this card's in my pool.
Literally every time.
I am picking Master's Guide Mural is
Guys
the
like
card.
red black, but there's one of those in the, in the
I
pool.
first of all, I never played Red Black, so don't be shading me. But yeah, Master's Guide Mural. This is the like uncommon for white blue artifacts. Amazing. Makes a 4/4 and it comes into play. You craft it, and then it makes a 4/4 every time you get to play an artifact on any turn. Amazing. So good. I mean, like you have to tap it. So like there are certain situations where actually get to do it on your opponent's turn, but
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it takes over the game. It's I can't pass this card. It hurts me to pass this card, and it's my favorite limited card from the set. There's a lot of
Yeah.
them, but this was my absolute favorite. Like I would even take it if I was like, there is a chance I might play it, but I probably won't, and that I would still take it just in case, just in case.
Yeah. That explains why it's always in your pool.
Hmm.
Uh, I think I don't know. I could have go a few different ways on this for my favorite limited card, but I'm gonna give it to our boy Zoetic Glyph because this was
Oh.
just like such a definer of the format, and I've been a sucker for the artifacts become creatures thing like
Mhm.
since the scissors way back when.
Oh, scissors are
And
good.
so to actually have one that's like really good in limited is unusual. Like usually
Mhm.
these cards are terrible in limited. And so like this being one of the better uncommons in the set was just really cool to me. And I was always like, oh, so Glyph, get in my pool right now.
That's I love that because that was like one of that could be the best uncommon of the entire thing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
for like
Which is why I like almost didn't want to pick it because I was like, it's just like super good. But
it's
also I love that this card is good in the format. That's what I love about it.
I just want to say that the fact that the two best auras, which are Zoetic Glyph and Atali's Favor, are both solid picks in draft. Like it,
Yeah.
you're looking at a board, you're like, oh, I'm totally fine, and then they play either one of these, you're like, fuck, oh
Yeah.
god,
Right. It really gets you because
it's
it's like
so
it
good.
doesn't say that the creature has haste, but the creature has haste
Yeah,
because it
it's
was just sitting there, right? So you're like,
oh
God damn it! I was not expecting a hasty 5/4
5/4
that if
that
I
I
kill it, they get another thing.
yeah, it's and honestly, you want to trade with this as soon as possible and give them the other thing. Like you have to, like
Yeah, you just got to bite the bullet and get
mhm.
fucked, basically. So
Basically that's what
I'll
happens.
just eat the 2-for-1. Trade my
Hmm.
best thing for that.
Yeah. So actually, as we go into standard, I want to say originally my card was Zoetic Glyph for standard. That was
Okay.
we were coming out of a world where we were playing food decks in like Wilds of Eldraine. Zoetiglyph just like fell right into line with all of that stuff. We
Yeah.
never really built like this. Is it food glyph Teferi Tezzeret deck? Like it never really. We never actually did
Is
that.
it or Simic?
Well, I was thinking, is it? But we could do Simic.
Because I
Um,
think there was a popular blue green
the artifact deck. That's
artifact
true.
aggro. It was like, I don't know, it popped up and then went away.
Mhm.
I think like a popular streamer did really well with it, and then it
I
was
think
everywhere.
Ash
And then
Lizzle did it. Yeah, and then
like Shield Maiden, right? On I think her handle on Arena is Shield Maiden,
oh,
but
maybe I don't know
um,
actually. But yeah, anyway,
maybe it's the same person, maybe it's a different person. I'm not sure, but
she has pale skin
that
and
deck
black
like
hair.
was super popular for a
Hmm.
while, and then I think it's sort of people realized it wasn't as amazing as it seemed originally.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that was when I saw Zoetic Glyph in Standard.
So I took Zoetic Glyph, and then I was playing different Kindred decks to try to figure out which one I liked the most
Oh right,
for
yeah, yeah,
Ixalan, which is the first streamer type thing I was really doing. And of all the different Kindred decks, the Pirate Artifact deck ended up being a little bit more artifacts than pirates, but that ended up being the deck I liked the most, and it was a lot of fun to
right.
play. So Zoetic Glyph had a really big part of that because it was Gingerbrute Zoetic Glyph, like awesome stuff. But
I think I
because
know
we're
what card you're gonna audible to though.
I'm gonna audible to Breaches.
I was gonna say I should have
Yeah,
said
yeah.
it.
So I'm gonna audible it to Breaches. If I can say the full card name, I would. As I
Eager
just
Pillager.
Eager Pillager. Thank you. This card is so fun. Um, he just like he does everything you want. Like if you're ever in a
Yeah,
situation where you're like, how do I get through? Oh, I can make sure that they can't block. How do I get more cards, or how do I get just one more mana? He does all of it.
yeah. And then you're
He's
like making a treasure token, then putting counters like
Mhm.
because an artifact entered the battlefield from
If you're
your
using Captain Storm and stuff like that,
storm and
that's
yeah.
really big. And like, but
And
making
honestly, like it just reminds me of the God Chain Whirler days, where it was like Chain Whirler was such a defining card in the format. You couldn't play one toughness shit anywhere. But
Mhm.
it was even though people didn't play it, it was still fine because a 3/3 first strike for 3 is still totally acceptable in an aggro attack. Like
Yeah, and this one's easier to cast than Chain Whirler is. So
yeah. I
like
remember watching you stream this deck. I was like really impressed with Breaches. It's like, oh, so
Breaches.
this card's just really good.
Yeah, a friend of ours has a big like a pirate commander deck that she's had forever, and I just when I saw her, I kept telling her like, I
You gotta
think
play Breaches.
Breaches is the best. Breaches is the card. That's the one you want. Like you want
Yeah.
Breaches.
You should
Breaches
probably
does
put
it.
Breaches in your
Put
deck.
Breaches in your deck. It's
And I
so
like
good.
how you like. I'm not even sure you need that many other pirate because
No,
he triggers himself, and he's just a 3/3 first strike for 3. So
at his base, when he attacks, you just make sure the only creature that is good at blocking him can't block, and then
right,
you're
like
good.
how hard is this guy to block? It's a 3/3 first strike that makes your best creature unable to block. Like you have to have two things that can block a
You
three
need
three
like
first striker
in
profitably.
draft, you need like two, three, four spiders to block this thing.
Yeah,
Like that's
that's
basically
right.
what you're trying to do, and you're like,
And
oh,
then they
sorry.
just don't attack. Like,
Yeah,
it's
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 like
not like they're stymied, right?
yeah, and then they have
Because
a
you can never attack with one of those because you need them both back.
yeah. Also, if you're playing like Spyglass Siren or like Oaken Siren or anything that flies, your opponent doesn't have more than two flyers most of the time. That oh, you can never block. Sorry, like
Yeah,
it's just
pretty sweet card.
it's such a sweet card. I love it, and it's the
We weren't
reason.
in like the modern era of Pirates is just never going to be viable in standard
No,
because they're not going to get any support. This would be a card you would see a lot more.
if we can squeeze some pirates out of like Thunder Junction, like just there's like a there's a part of me that maybe like we could count some of the robbers of like this weird Wild West thing as pirates, like maybe, but there's no like
I don't
sea
think so, man.
desert pirate. I don't know. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
get one. Um. Anyway, Jeff, give us your best standard card. And don't tell me, don't tell me what it is. Just kidding. I know exactly what it is. Just go ahead.
Yeah, I've already
Hmm.
even alluded to it as my favorite card in the whole
Yeah,
set. So this is Inti Senisk, Fill of the Sun. We already talked a lot about how I think this card is amazing.
so good.
I think this card is fantastic, and I think you're gonna just be seeing a lot like more and more of it as
Hmm.
because it doesn't necessarily like it's different than most of the stuff we've seen.
Hmm.
So you have to play with or against it. You have to really get like trounced by it, where you're like, oh, that card kind of single-handedly won that game. And I
Hmm.
think people have learned that lesson now, as you learned, because when I first started playing this deck, that card would go unkilled.
Hmm.
Literally, people would kill my Blood Tithe Harvester before they'd kill that. I'd just be like, okay, thanks for the free win.
Hmm.
Now, if Inti hits the board at any point, it is
It's
dead.
dead.
Like,
Thank God. I just want to say, thank God, Inti is not white, blue, or black.
yeah,
Because if it was able to go into like an Esper Legends build with connive stuff,
that'd
that
be
would be
insane. Yeah,
disgusting. Like
yeah.
so. I would hate that so much. It's
And I
so
love that they did that, so it's like, here's a reason to play a different color
mhm. Yeah,
and
basically.
still play an aggro deck or whatever, or a mid-range deck, right?
Uh, so great card. We're moving into Explorer cards. So there are ones I could have picked.
Yeah.
Um, but I did decide after all that like the card that actually for me defines Explorer. I know it could be Appraiser, it could be Quint, it could be like Amalia, cards we talked about already.
Yeah.
But honestly, the card that I was most happy that came from the set was the reprint of Cavern of Souls. Like,
I was gonna say the other option is Cavern, right?
yeah. So this, I was just happy this card is something we can play now. It's something in Explorer. It's something in Pioneer. Um, this was huge. We said it coming into it. This was a no pass list for sure. I have all my copies. Like
Yeah.
definitely worth having. It's making waves in standard and everywhere. So happy that we have it all around. Creature decks rejoice forever.
Yeah. So I felt bad about my pick. Was wondering it was slightly lame, but I'm glad to hear you choose a land. So
Mm.
my pick was Restless Fence, and
Okay.
the reason is um, red black mid range or red black decks in Explore
Hmm.
have access to excellent creature lands. I would say Hive of the Eye Tyrant and Den of the Bugbear are
Hmm.
fantastic,
Top tier.
but they both cost 4 to activate, so they cost 4 plus having that land.
Hmm.
And I've personally been adding one Restless Fence to my deck just to give you that option of a 3 mana activation, which is much more powerful and like the looting or the rummaging
Hmm.
and the menace. I think it's just been super relevant. So I think this card has made a notable upgrade to the red black decks. And honestly, this is the card from the set that I play the most. I
Hmm.
also thought about like Amalia as well. Like I play
I thought
against
about that
Amalia a
too.
lot,
Yeah.
but like this is the card from this set that I play the most in
Hmm.
Explorer is this one. So
Yeah, and I'm not playing a ton of Explorer, but I am 100% playing some sort of like spirit bullshit deck, and Cavern of
yeah,
Souls is the card I would want.
right.
Um, I definitely agree actually with the Restless Fence because Menace on a creature land is so big because
Restless
most of
Sense is very good. The more I
it's
play
very
with it, I'm
good.
like, this is just really, really good. It feels like you're cheating because it's so cheap.
Yeah, and
Like creature lands aren't normally that cheap.
it only hits for 2, but the Menace is huge, like
Yeah.
huge, and
And if you're playing Inti and putting counters on it, then it hits
exactly.
for more than two.
Exactly. And not just that, but like just remember the reason like I think Menace in general, Hive the Eye Tyrant and Vents are so good. The Menace because usually creature lands are their strongest after a board wipe, and then your opponent
Yeah.
plays a blocker. Now you get around the blocker and it doesn't matter. So
Honestly, the more I play with Menace, the closer and closer it feels to unblockable to me.
yeah.
It's just every game I'm just like, oh, it has Menace, whatever. Bang.
Hmm.
Like Stalactite Stalker's a 6/6. Sucks to be you.
Yeah, go.
Like,
Yeah.
actually, I
It's
never remember if it's stalactite or stalagmite, but I think it's
it's
stalactite.
it's stalactite. It's still definitely stalactite. Um, all right, we're going to timeless. So this is the one I just jumped shot into
Yes,
your world right now.
I have nothing here. I gotta
That's
like
totally
scroll through
fine.
Scryfall, man.
The only card that has pierced timeless, and I was so surprised to see, and I remember clocking it a couple times when I was playing a bunch of timeless, was this card's being played in timeless. This is from
Right.
the last set. Like, are you serious?
Yeah,
We're playing
this
this card,
is.
and it's another land. I'm talking about Sunken Citadel. This was a
Oh yeah,
cave.
that's a good point. Yeah,
This is
I
a
have seen that.
cave that I 100% wrote off at the beginning of the set, being like, this is worthless. Don't take this. Please. I was telling everyone, shouting it, don't take this land. It's not worth playing. It's terrible. And now it's being played in the most expensive, or not, that can be debated. We've had the discussion, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the biggest, most powerful format that we have on Arena is Sunken Citadel. It's a tapped land. That's crazy. But the fact that they're playing this in like Amulet Titan decks, we don't have Amulet, but it's that
right.
feel we're
Titan.
playing
Yeah,
Titan decks. Um, because it taps for, it's a single card that taps for 2 mana of your choice if you're doing like land sources. So they're using this with like Castle Garenbrig. Garenbrig? That's the green one, right?
yep.
Um, and so you
The
can
one
like,
I always forget about, and I'm like, oh,
mhm,
they can't cast Titan next turn, and they're like
mhm.
Titan. Like,
Titan.
oh yeah,
Oh,
forgot about that.
they can do it
Forgot about
because
that
they can
card.
activate that. So Sunken Citadel is a huge reason why they can do that. And this card is everywhere. And like, I 100% wrote this off as like, this is just a shitty land that can activate creature lands
Yeah,
better.
yeah,
Like
right.
it just seemed so bad. And
It's like, what are you playing your like turtle plus sunken citadel things?
like
Your
they,
creature lands are
ugh,
cheap.
like
Like,
that
come on.
sounded terrible. um but no, this card actually has made its rounds, and it taps for whatever color you're missing. It's tapped, but you fix your mana, so
Yep.
it ends up being really important in those like multicolor Titan decks.
Yeah. So I've scrolled through the list, and
Hmm.
the only card from this set that I don't think I've played any of these lands, timeless. Personally, the only card that I have actually played is Molten Collapse. I've played Molten Collapse in my Rakdos
In your
timeless deck,
timeless
in and
deck,
out, kind of one copy
that
here and there.
I
Um,
have 100% seen it too.
it's really good at cleaning up Oko. So Oko
Hmm.
comes down, makes a food token, you Molten Collapse, you kill the Oko and the food
And the
token.
food token. Ooh,
Yeah,
just wipe. Oh, the Oko Wiper. I like that.
yeah.
2 mana
Now
Oko
Oko is
Wiper.
sort of like I think a little less in vogue than it was at the start of the format.
Ooh.
So I don't know if this would be in my deck or sideboard now, but
Hmm.
I liked it as like all right, this cleans up Oko for less mana than Oko cost, and
Hmm.
that's always nice. And then it has utility everywhere else, like it just kills creatures and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Also, it's
it's
like in the
totally
best
fine.
colors for
Yeah,
one of the best.
yeah.
Like two of the Rakdos is very strong in that format. Is what I'm trying to say.
You could have just like you could replace that with any format. Rakdos really
Okay.
taken off, man. Rakdos is
It
just
did.
good in every format now.
Yeah, I see. So years ago, Jeff used to play Golgari, and
Yeah.
now he's decided that he wants to jump to Rakdos when it's popular, of course, like
Yeah,
classic.
yeah. It wasn't like 5 years ago that I made the switch.
It wasn't like right when we started the podcast, which was
Yeah, yeah.
anyway,
Long time ago.
a long time ago.
I saw the writing on the wall, man. I was like,
Mhm.
hey, Rakdos is where you want to be in the new era of Magic.
It's true. All right, Jeff. So this is honestly, we talked about favorite cards, favorite everything.
Yeah.
We've honestly danced around the set a little bit as far as
I
like how great it is.
think we're talking about almost every card in this set.
But favorite art.
Oh, this
Now,
one's tough.
this can
This
also
one's
be,
always the hardest one.
this one's really tough because
Yeah.
Wizards makes it really difficult when there's a bunch of different like art variants and borderless cards. Borderless cards are not the same as extended art cards, which are
Right.
also not the same as like alternate art cards, which are also not the same as whatever. It's very confusing. I have something simple. I want to cut through all of it. This is a card you've seen
Cut the
often.
bullshit.
It's not going to be something you've never heard of before, or you're just like, this is random. But honestly, of all the cards, I think that the best one that or like articulates what I want, and by an artist I really respect, is Restless Prairie. So this is the white green creature land that looks like a llama because it is a llama. I
Yeah,
think that's amazing.
that's awesome.
Honestly, all the restless lands look great. Anchorage being like a bird, the vents looking like an insect, like all that is so like that's so good. Like we haven't had amazing creature lands like this. Like there's been Zendikar E1s, but the fact that they were able to make a plot of land look like a llama to represent a
Love
llama was
that.
so great. And I want to just give huge props to Randy Gallegos who did this card. And
Yeah.
to the point where like the alternate art of the card, I think is cheaper than the act like the regular art because
Oh, damn, that's unusual.
everybody wants the llama land. Nobody wants the other one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this is huge. Now, don't quote me on that price. It used to be like that. It might be different now. But I also just want to say Randy Gallegos, I I've met him at a convention before and he signed my
Oh, that's
Soul
cool.
Warden because he is the artist of Soul Warden. He's
What? Okay.
yeah.
We're going
So,
old school. Love
so
it.
he's been around for a really long time. I think Soul Warden was an Exodus or something like that. So
Yeah.
um this dude super solid. And if you've been a magic artist for a really long time, there's a lot of reasons artists have come and gone for different reasons, but this guy's awesome. Great work. I love it. Restless Prairie, you're it this set. So
Oh, that's so interesting because I was actually going to choose Restless Anchorage because I just thought it was
that's
so cool
perfect.
the way that it looks
Yeah.
like a bird, you know? And I'm not even sure I noticed that it looks like a llama until you just said that.
Are you serious? Really?
Well, I don't play against the card, right?
Oh,
Like,
sure,
so
because no one
I
plays it.
saw
Yeah.
it like one time when it was previewed or whatever. And now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. It is a plot of land that looks like a llama. That's amazing.
Like,
But I play against Restless Anchorage all the time. And I'm like, I think
mhm.
this is so cool that it's like this island thing that looks like a bird.
Yeah,
And it looks like it's flying as well because it has
because
like
the
the
because like okay, this is what's cool. So it looks like it is moving because ships are moving
ships
away from
are
it.
exactly the ships are going out of port and they're
Hmm.
leaving this wake or
Which
whatever you
makes it
call it
yeah.
behind them, and it looks like the bird is flying. I was like, that's awesome when I noticed that. When it was actually the first time I noticed that is when I was dying to this card. I was literally dead on board. This card was attacking me, and I like highlighted. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh damn, that's pretty cool though.
It's so
If there's a
cool.
card I had to lose to, I'm glad it was this one.
It's awesome. It's
Yeah,
it's so cool. This is also an artist I haven't heard of before, Leon Tucker.
yeah. When you
Um,
mentioned called out the artist, I like looked up. I was like, oh, I don't recognize this name, but
oh, but he's fairly new. Leon has done a lot of work on um,
Commander products and stuff. Or...
no, basically the cards that they're all artifacts. It was like Brothers War
Oh, okay.
stuff. So Cityscape Leveler, Clay Champion, Mishra's
Oh,
Foundry.
I like a lot of these arts. Okay,
Hmm. Yeah, so those
Leon sounds
cards.
very talented.
Yeah, and then a couple ones from the actual March of the Machine. But yeah, definitely somebody to keep your finger on. Leon Tucker, an artist that is up and coming in Magic's history. So really cool. Wow, we got an old artist, we got a new artist.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Uh Man, I think that, honestly, that's something that we don't talk about enough is the art on the cards. And if you take a Magic survey, they will ask you how important the art style is for you, like what you think. And I always hit like most important because
yeah.
this game, there are a bunch of artists that meant a lot to me. Maybe I didn't know their names, but I knew their work and they drew me into the game. And
Same.
so there's specific cards that I will always look at and be like, man, this is the card that made me think like this game is cool. I want to
Exactly.
be a part of this community because this card looks awesome, and it's always the artwork. I'm never gonna talk about the person who invented the board, or to be fair, I don't know that person, but I think that the art is huge for the game. So always want to give a
Yeah.
props to the artists and say that, this is me personally. There's a lot of things about AI art going around. I know WotC has been getting a lot of heat from AI
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff in general, but um, they will sort things out, I believe. And I do know that the heart of everything, Mark Rosewater and all the people that really make Wizards and Magic care a lot about artists and want them to do well and prosper and be part of the game.
Right.
I don't ever think we're going to be in a place where AI is making every single card that we play, because that's the day Magic could die. You know, it's very possible.
Yeah. I mean, like this is a math game, right? It's
Hmm.
you attack, you block, you deal damage,
Yeah.
and there's a reason it's as popular as it is, given that its numbers. And it's same thing that drew me in was the art, and it's the same reason I look at old border cards and I'm like, that looks so much better. Like the old
Hmm.
border to me really gave off that dark fantasy vibe that a lot of the art contributes to now. So I think the art is hugely important. Like when I see a card, I'm not reading it every time. I'm not looking
Hmm.
at the name of the card and saying, oh, like Tishana's Tide Binder. I know what that card does. No, I just see the art and I'm like, immediately I know exactly what this card does. So um, the art is phenomenally important, and I think it's in Wizards' best interest to continue to use excellent artists,
Hmm.
um, and it would blow my mind if they didn't know
Yeah.
that. If they just started showing up with like generic GPT art,
Hmm.
that would be crazy, and someone from Hasbro would have been forcing that decision down their
Yes.
throats because
Yeah. I
it's
don't.
cheaper or whatever. But like, no, it's like the heart and soul of the game, man. Like the
Hmm.
game is amazing, but it wouldn't be popular if it wasn't shrouded in this like somewhat dark fantasy.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
like
Richard Garfield knew this by, like, playtest cards all have at least some sort of image, even if it looks kind of like clip arty. You
right,
need a picture to understand what the card is. Like you were saying, we don't read the card every time we see it, and I I know there's a lot of worry about the future because there are some things very recently coming out that we didn't talk about, but um,
yeah,
I don't think this is a cause for worry. I think we can hold steady, and I don't believe that Wizards is going to just implode with AI art. Like, I don't think we're getting Magic cards with AI art.
it would
Like,
just be a really bad decision for them. It doesn't make any
yeah,
sense.
it
Like
doesn't make any sense.
AI art currently sucks, man. Like
It does
it's
suck,
impressive that AI can do that, but it's not
but it's not.
impressive by human standard, by like a
Mhm.
professional human artist standards.
Yeah, and I would hope that Wizards as a company would not, if it ever gets to a caliber where it could, quote unquote, replace people, would they do
Yeah,
that? I would really hope that they won't. Um, I
yeah,
don't believe that's a worry, but I do think it's worth calling out and worth talking about. So,
yeah. It's not a tangent I want to go on right now, but people wildly overestimate current AI. It's all I'll say is um, it's a really fancy compression algorithm. So you
mhm,
look at GPT, you know how a JPEG is like a way to take an image and compress it so it doesn't take up that much memory? That's what GPT is. It is a very efficient compression algorithm. It's just taken,
mhm,
billions of documents and compressed it, but it doesn't actually think or learn or do anything. It just
yeah,
has taken a whole bunch of human
stuff,
interactions and compressed it into however many billions of parameters that it took a bunch of information and it compressed it into a few billion numbers. That's what GPT is. It's
yeah.
it's not intelligence.
Mhm. So, yes. Anyway, with that, little bit of a seemingly downer, but not really. Jeff, let's get
No, that's a good
into.
thing. We're not getting overrun by robots
That's
anytime soon.
true. That's true. Only in chess will we get run over by robots.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
they've been kicking our ass for years.
yeah,
So.
yeah. Thank God we still have poker on our side for the magicians,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
Um,
And magic. I mean,
yeah, and
computers can't
yeah,
beat us at magic yet.
that's true because you have to have a soul to
That's right.
use magic. I don't really
It's
know.
because of the art. The computers don't
Totally.
get it.
Yeah, they can't understand art. All the fingers and the teeth are like fucked up. Anyway, let's. I think we've kind of done our due diligence with like Lost Caverns of Ixalan.
Yeah.
We talked about all the cards we love, cards that will be seen for a while, and it was a great set. We didn't even get into the a lot of the things that could be unrivaled with this
Yeah.
set. So
This was
just
quite a set. It was quite a set.
do yourself a favor. Every time you're finishing a set, just go to Scryfall, type in Lost Caverns of Ixalan or whatever the set is, and just take a minute to look at all the cards again. And just be like,
Yeah.
I want to say I've had so many emotional reactions to seeing these cards in draft or in different formats or whatever. I just want to fully let it go while we get to previews for the next one, and I fully get into that because it is cathartic and it's really helpful. It helps me. I didn't do it before we did the podcast, and I've really enjoyed it since we've done that. So
Yeah.
anyway,
To use a sports metaphor, I'd say this set was a grand slam dunk from Wizards.
grand slam dunk. All right, so we're
Yeah.
not even we're not even using home run slam dunk anymore. What is
No.
happening? um, Jeff, let's go to last call. All right, we are talking about a beer that we had this evening. It is called Each Beast a God. Uh, we rate these beers on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. However, this has nothing to do with what tier you are in currently. Everybody's in different tiers at different times. Tiers mean a lot of different things nowadays. They're not indicative of how good you are at Magic or how smart you are as a player. But don't feel bad when you say that bronze beers are trash. They're awful beers. You can't drink them. You have to spit them out. You have to pour them down the drain. Like you dump out the rest of the six pack.
Silver beers are bad or just kind of boring, like Budweiser,
Hmm.
classic silver.
Gold beers are fine, but you wouldn't really drink them again. They're just like meh.
Yeah, platinum are these are solid. You would drink these again.
Diamond beers are exceptional. You like these a lot, and you would recommend these to your friends.
And mythic, these are the best of the best. These are the Inti Senescal of the Sun of the beer world.
Fantastic. Um, Jeff, we had this double coffee stout.
Yes.
What did you think of having this beer from a brewery? I know we have ideas about this brewery coming into
Yeah.
this. So I'm really interested to think like to find out what you think because last time we rated a beer from this brewery, we were very opposite. Like we were as
Yeah.
almost as far apart as we could be.
Yeah, and that's why I was excited to just try I mean, not that a double coffee stout is super normal, but like
Hmm.
it's within the realm of a beer that a
Yes,
normal beer.
you could find at most places.
So I did a few this beer had me on some ups and downs. I will say at first I hated it. I took a sip and I was like, how dare you? This is offensive. But then I started to realize that part of that comes from recently my favorite beer in the whole world became readily available in Ontario. And it is a similarly sized stout, like 8 to 9% stout, and is pushing sort of similar flavors. And to me, this is quite a bit worse than that. And I've been having that on and off just because it's available now. So I'm like, let's buy 10
Hmm.
of these. It's not a beer you drink 10 of in a particularly short period of time. Then I was like, okay, let's stop comparing it to Pichet Moktel and just like try to see it for its own thing. And I kind of landed on like it's okay. Um, Yeah. To me, this is somewhere between gold and platinum. It's gold if like it's platinum if I'm trying to remove my bias from there's a similar beer that is much better that I've been drinking a lot of lately.
Hmm.
And it's gold if I'm just like this was my reaction to the beer. Um, I don't know. It doesn't feel balanced well. Like I think the bitterness isn't balanced by the alcohol, which is what's supposed to happen in these big beers. I
Hmm.
think both of them are kind of hitting me in a way that I don't
Interesting.
love. Um, I get the coffee. I guess that's nice. Like when someone
Hmm.
says it's a coffee stout, I taste coffee in this, and it's a good coffee flavor too. So
Yeah.
that'd be the selling point, I suppose. Is like if you're selling this as a coffee stout, I get coffee, and it's not like a. Sometimes you get coffee and you're like, whoa, that tastes like burnt Tim Hortons coffee.
Yeah.
No, this tastes like good coffee.
Hmm.
Um, I guess that's the way I would sum it up. The balance doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem like
I
all those things are meshed well.
meshing. I can see that. I started with this beer at Diamond in my mind because I do like Third Moon. I enjoy this
Yeah,
stuff. Um, but I
I
do
think
agree.
I think I
Sorry,
generally don't, and you generally do. Is
I
that
think
right?
that's
Yeah.
that's probably how it goes. Um, but I do want to say that this stout felt the body felt like it was kind of missing a little bit. There was a weird
Yeah.
high note and a low note that I don't really know. I think it's kind of attributed to what you're saying with like the alcohol and the bitterness, just kind of like not really meshing
Right.
super well. And there was like this weird medium that we were missing, and it felt like it did slide down to a high platinum to me.
Yeah,
Um, where if we went to Third Moon, I probably wouldn't pick this one out of all the beers that you could try.
for
This is not
sure.
something I'd be like, hey, that one's really worth trying. I'd be like, I've had it. I would drink this again if I had another one in my fridge. I'd probably crack it right now, to be honest. But I don't. It's not the great stout I was hoping for. I was hoping for a big bodied, like full, creamy, silky, like bitter
Yeah.
stout, and I
I
just
think
don't
that's part of it
have
is
it.
usually when a brewery makes something like this, like an 8.5% double
Mm.
coffee stout, it's usually really good
Yeah,
because
it's
they've
like big and like,
put the work in. I'm not like, why would I release this unless it's
mhm. It
like
just
perfect?
feels like not just that, but it feels like it's full, and it feels like it almost feels like a meal, and this
Yeah,
didn't have like the mealy big punchy. It like was very flavorful. Like I'm not saying it didn't
definitely.
have
Definitely.
flavor.
Yeah.
It just was some of the I don't know if it's like the sugar content we were missing, or like there's something about the body that just felt like it was almost a little thinner than I was hoping. So
Yeah, I
um
think your call out of the body being
mhm.
insufficient is that makes sense to me because that's part of what contributes to that whole balance as well. It's just like it doesn't feel
Yeah.
right, and I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and they even called it each beast a god, and you
Right,
feel like it just gives you a sense of visceral like strength, and the fact that it
right.
felt almost like a little like meh. There's a little bit
Yeah,
of
a
like
little
a
thin.
yeah, it wasn't like a big like this the bump or the speed bump that you're going over in your car. It was just like meh. And you're like, oh, that was
Yeah.
all? Okay, that's not very
I
much.
don't know why I
Like,
slowed down for that.
yeah, I was like prepared for this big bump, and it just didn't
Right.
do anything. It's like so it just didn't
To be fair, I didn't serve it at 14 degrees Celsius. This is quite a bit colder than that. And
that's
that's what it
that's
suggests you
true.
should drink it
I
at.
feel like that's just
Like, okay, third moon, how
fair.
am I gonna get it to 14? That's
What
that's like well below room temperature, but well above fridge temperature.
how do you get that? And to be fair, we this was out of the fridge for a good 10-15 minutes before we drank it. So it's not even
That's
like we
true,
just
yeah.
pulled it straight out. So like
Yeah.
I don't know, do you want me to stick it in my pants and like jump up and down, or I don't know what you want. Like
But not too much, because you'll get it above 14.
yeah,
So
it's true. That's true. Anyway, uh yeah, I'm gonna stick with platinum with this.
yeah. I'll go with gold, but I think I do acknowledge that I've just had and it's not even just the one I called out. I've had a few pretty good like similar vein stouts recently. I
Yeah,
think that's obscuring where those are all like mythic, and then this one I'm
for
like,
sure.
so
Like,
much worse than those ones.
yeah, your barometer is also different than mine, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it makes sense. I'm glad it's not as far apart as our last one that I loved. But anyway, um,
We got to get a bronzed verse mythic.
that one day that will not happen. If it would be
No,
anything,
seems impossible.
it would have to be a sour that you just like hated
Yeah.
and
I
something.
just like vomit as soon as I drink it. You
Yeah, or
think it's the
some.
best thing
Yeah, there's.
ever.
I don't see that happening ever, but we'll have to see. Anyway, it's time for closing time. So if you have a beer that you think would be bronze for Jeff but mythic for me, you can always find us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
You may also find us on Arena itself under the username Arena Regulars Podcast. We'll be roguing it up.
Mm-hmm. In Timeless. If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg. That's Zeulberg on Twitter and Instagram. Also on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, I stream on Twitch. That's regular_Zach on Twitch.
It's a fun time. Come hang out.
Mm-hmm.
You can also find me on our Discord channel. I go by Regular Jeff there. Best place to find that is the show notes.
That's right. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there. Go to YouTube, do all the things that you're supposed to do. Leave us comments. Honestly, like it just helps us out a lot with SEO and all that kind of weird jargon. Just clicking buttons and doing stuff. It might not mean a lot for you, but it means a lot for us. So we really appreciate it. But ultimately, telling your friends about the podcast, that is the best thing you could possibly do. Just share this with someone that you like, one of your like commander players or anyone who plays arena with you. That's huge. We do where our friends tell us to do. So we really appreciate that. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that the new best card in every format is Inti, Seneschal of the Sun.
Good night. Seneschal? Is that how you're supposed to say it?
No.
All right, that's fine.